Welcome to Midnight Delight, where nightmares come to play. Get ready to be plunged into the darkest corners of your imagination as we explore chilling tales of the supernatural. Tonight, we delve into the legend of the Goatman, a creature that lurks in the shadows waiting to haunt your dreams. So turn off the lights, get comfortable, and prepare for a journey into the unknown. This is Midnight Delight. I remember this one night when my friends and I decided to go hiking in the woods near our town. It was supposed to be just a fun, adventurous night out. We had heard stories about the Goatman, but none of us really believed it. That changed pretty quickly. We started our hike around 9 p.m. with flashlights in hand, laughing and joking around. About an hour into the hike, the atmosphere changed. The forest went eerily silent, and a cold chill ran down my spine. We brushed it off, thinking it was just the night getting to us. Then, we heard it. A low, menacing growl. We stopped dead in our tracks. Our flashlights flickered, and we saw a shadow dart between the trees. It was tall, with what looked like horns on its head. My friend James tried to laugh it off, saying it was probably just a deer, but we knew better. As we continued walking, the growling grew louder. Suddenly, we saw it, a creature with the body of a man and the head of a goat. Its eyes glowed red, piercing through the darkness. It started walking towards us, slow and menacing. We ran as fast as we could, our hearts pounding. We didn't stop until we were out of the woods and back in town. We never spoke about that night again, but we knew what we saw. One summer, my cousin and I decided to explore an old abandoned barn on the outskirts of our town. The place had a creepy reputation, and locals whispered about a creature that roamed the area, the Goatman. We entered the barn in the late afternoon, the sun casting long shadows. The place was falling apart, with broken windows and rotting wood. As we looked around, we found strange symbols carved into the beams and an overwhelming smell of decay. Suddenly, the air grew cold, and the barn became unnaturally silent. We heard faint footsteps above us, like something heavy was walking on the rafters. We looked up, and there it was, the Goatman, staring down at us with its glowing red eyes. It jumped down, landing with a loud thud, and started towards us. My cousin screamed, and we bolted for the door. The creature's guttural growl echoed through the barn as we ran. Just as we reached the exit, I felt something grab my leg. I kicked and struggled, finally breaking free. We didn't stop running until we were far from the barn. We told our parents, but they didn't believe us. They said it was just our imagination. But we knew what we saw. That barn is still there, and I haven't gone back since. A few years ago, my friends and I went on a camping trip in a remote part of the woods. We set up our tents, started a fire, and settled in for what we thought would be a fun night. As the night went on, we began to hear strange noises. Rustling leaves, distant growls, and something that sounded like hooves on the ground. We tried to ignore it, but the noises kept getting closer. Around midnight, the fire suddenly went out, plunging us into darkness. We scrambled to relight it, and that's when we saw it. The thing that still haunts my nightmares. Something I thought was just folklore. The Goatman, standing at the edge of our campsite, illuminated by the faint glow of the fire. It had the body of a man, but its head was that of a goat, with large, curved horns and glowing red eyes. It let out a terrifying scream and started towards us. We grabbed whatever we could and ran into the woods, not caring which direction we went. We spent the rest of the night huddled together, too scared to sleep. At dawn, we found our way back to the campsite. Our tents were torn apart and our supplies were scattered everywhere. We packed up and left as quickly as we could. To this day, I can't go camping without thinking about that night. The Goatman is real, and it's out there waiting. This happened to me a few years back when I was visiting my grandparents in Texas. There's this old creepy bridge near their town called Goatman's Bridge. The local legend says that if you go there at night and knock 3 times, the Goatman will appear. My cousin and I, being the thrill seekers we were, decided to test it out. We drove to the bridge around midnight, the air thick with anticipation and fear. We parked the car a little way off and walked to the center of the bridge. It was eerily quiet, the only sound being the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. My cousin knocked 3 times on the wooden railing and we waited. At first, nothing happened. We laughed nervously, thinking it was just a silly legend. But then we heard a faint, distant bleating sound like that of a goat. The temperature dropped and a thick fog started to roll in. Suddenly, we saw a shadowy figure at the far end of the bridge. It was tall, with broad shoulders and what looked like horns on its head. The figure began to move towards us, its hooves clacking on the wooden planks of the bridge. My cousin and I were frozen in place, too terrified to move. As it got closer, we could see its eyes, bright red and filled with malice. The Goatman let out a bone-chilling scream, and we snapped out of our trance. We turned and ran back to the car as fast as we could, the creature's growls echoing behind us. We jumped into the car and sped away, not looking back. When we got home, we didn't say a word about what had happened, but I know one thing for sure. I'll never go back to Goatman's Bridge again. A couple of years ago, my friends and I decided to go on a weekend camping trip in the deep woods of Maryland. This place was beautiful during the day, but took on a sinister vibe as the sun set. We had heard local tales of the Goatman, but shrugged them off as just stories. The first night was uneventful, but on the second night, things took a turn. We were sitting around the campfire, sharing ghost stories, when we heard something moving in the bushes. It sounded like heavy footsteps and the occasional snap of a twig. Thinking it was an animal, we ignored it. Then we heard a low growl that sent shivers down our spines. One of my friends pointed their flashlight towards the sound, and that's when we saw it. Standing just beyond the edge of our campsite was a creature with the body of a man but the head of a goat. Its eyes glowed red in the darkness and its horns were long and twisted. We were paralyzed with fear. The Goatman let out a blood-curdling scream and started to move towards us. We grabbed whatever we could and ran into the forest, leaving our campsite behind. We ran for what felt like hours until we found a small cabin. We banged on the door until an old man let us in. We told him what we saw, and he just nodded, saying that the Goatman had been terrorizing the area for years. We stayed in the cabin until morning, too scared to sleep. At first light, we cautiously made our way back to our campsite. Everything was destroyed. Our tents ripped apart and our supplies scattered everywhere. We packed up what remained of our campsite and left as quickly as we could. I haven't been camping since that night, and I still get chills thinking about the Goatman. It's not just a legend, it's real, and it's out there in the woods. Thank you for joining us on this spine-tingling journey through the shadows. If you enjoyed tonight's tale of the Goatman, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more terrifying stories. Don't forget to ring the bell so you never miss a nightmare. Have a story you'd like to share or a creature you want us to explore? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, keep your lights on and your doors locked. Sweet dreams from Midnight Delight, where nightmares come to play.